What's going on? So today we're gonna be doing a comparison between the Air Jordan 1 Union Chicago Shadows replica versus retail. Now, for those of you who cannot tell, the replica pair is on the right. Replica pair is on the right. I'm not gonna lie, it's a little obvious because of this lace thing. I could do all the laces, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm not trying to do all that to trick you guys. So right now we'll briefly get into the boxes and then we'll get back into the sneakers. Really quickly we'll get into the boxes. I'm not gonna lie, I don't want to stare too much at the boxes because I feel like at this point I'm gonna fucking mix them up. So the replica box is on the right. Trying to spot differences. Retail box is on the left. So the Jumpman, I don't know if you guys can see it, but it comes out a little bit. It's almost like a sticker. It might literally be a sticker, but it looks sort of like a sticker. The retail box, you can see, is very flat. I don't know if you guys can see that. Let me know. But you guys can kind of see, like, you can see it definitely around this hands. You can see it looks like a sticker. This looks like it was imprinted on there. Also, the paper looks perfectly fine on the replica. Looks very accurate. Still have the shoes in here. Don't want to get too mixed up. Maybe a little bit thinner on the retail paper. And as well, the retail paper, they come like this. They come very well packaged. And the replica has this other flimsy paper. So let's get back into the shoes. Get into the shoes really quickly. I want to mention that the retail pair has this red stamp, whereas the replica pair does not have that. Again, I believe the reps can replicate that, so be cautious. So now that we're getting back into the sneakers, one thing that I noticed is I guess the reps just either didn't know they were gonna come like this, or I don't know what they did, but the laces come in lace bags. So that's like a pretty obvious indicator. Again, I could just fucking cut those lace bags off and put them like that. And again, we're at the beginning and it's harder to tell. But let's try to get into it. Off first glance, these look pretty damn good, I won't lie. It is a little tough. I think on the replica, the Union LA, again, retail pairs can vary. I've mentioned this multiple times. I've gotten people commenting that there's inconsistency between retail pairs. Sure, this is just one example video. I'm not gonna get 3 retail pairs. I won't even get 1 retail pair. You know how hard that is? But on the Union LA right here, this little tag, it's definitely smaller compared to the retail pair, as you guys can see. And the stitching above the Union LA tag right up here is also a lot more noticeable and it's a lot more straight. Whereas on the rep, I don't know if you guys can see that, it just doesn't look as crisp, unless I'm fucking tripping. It's like there's more holes in the stitching. You see that? Look at this stitching. This is the retail for reference. And now this is the rep. You can literally see like all these holes right here within the stitching. They're a lot more noticeable in the replica pair than on the retail. I don't know if you guys can see it. It looks better in person. Like you can already see the holes over here, right? You can literally see that from far. Closer, it's a bit hard to tell, but you can see the holes. You can't really see these holes unless you start getting closer. That's one difference that I'm spotting right now. Obviously the little lace or whatever, I feel like right here as well on the stitching on the retail pair, you can see it's very straight. This line is straight. Slight curve up here. You guys can kind of see that. And at this point, like I said, we're nitpicking. They've pretty much perfected ones. And I mentioned on my retail video where I just compared this shoe, if you guys are interested in that, you can check that out. But yeah, Nike has a solid amount of flaws, some loose stitching, things like that. So that's how you know they're Nike, whereas the replica pair doesn't really have any of that. I feel like the Jordan logo is bigger, but I also feel like I'm wrong. I feel like there's not even a difference. Let me try to... It feels like it's supposed to be bigger, but I don't think it really is. The swoosh material is practically identical to be honest with you. One thing that I am noticing, at least specifically on this back side, is that the lining and the cuts are definitely a lot thicker on the Replica. This is the retail pair. You can kind of see the cut, right? But on the Replica, look at that. You can see that shit a mile away almost. Look at that. So again, I don't know if that's just quality. I don't know if that's just my batch. You guys can literally see that difference right there. Replica pair is a bit wider. Definitely a bit wider. Rougher cuts as well. This material feels basically the same. The tongue also seems a bit wider. You can kind of see how, I don't want to say flimsy, but you can kind of see how wide this tongue looks versus this tongue. It's more narrow. It's kind of caved in a bit more. Also, the little paper on the retail pair is a bit more crumbly. It's low-key a different paper. You can literally see that. This paper is nice and straight. This paper also is almost a shit. I can't even describe that. This is like fucking construction paper, bro. This feels like construction paper, fucking newspaper. This feels like a regular fucking piece of paper. Stitching on that is also a little bit different. The stitching on the Replica pair is just a straight up fucking line, as you guys can see that. Whereas on the retail pair, you can definitely see the difference. You guys see that? Definitely a difference there. Trying to see if there's a difference in this tongue stitching. I definitely don't want to fuck these up, man. It's definitely not something you want to mess up. I think there's more black stitching actually on the retail pairs. You guys can see on the tongue a lot more stitching compared to the Replica. It just looks a bit lighter. I feel like you guys can kind of see that. Also seems to be a bit more of a yellow hue to the tongue. And like I said, this tongue just seems very white. More padding, ironically. On the Replica, there's more padding throughout the tongue. The reason this tongue is a bit narrow and a bit more caved in is because there's less padding here. So it allows the tongue to sort of cave in a little bit more. The spongy little fucking material looks fucking almost identical. Maybe it's a little darker on the retail pair compared to the Rep, but nothing too crazy. The main thing I'm seeing with the stitching is, like I said, this little fucking holes thing. You guys can see on the back, right is the Replica, left is the retail. You can see the holes thing again, as I was mentioning. The stitching holes is what I'll fucking call them. I don't know if that's the right term. Correct me in the comments or something. But you guys can see the Replica pair. You can see a lot more of those holes being punched into the stitching. Whereas on the retail pair, you can hardly see them. Especially from far away, you can kind of definitely see it more. But stitching looks great. And again, on the Replica pair, actually, now that I'm looking, look at this red stitching. You see, those are like actual fucking literal holes. Look at that. You can see that. Whereas on the retail pair, you don't have any of that. It's pretty good example of that. This part is perfectly fine to me. Another thing that I actually just noticed is actually pretty obvious now that I see it. So the Replica pair, at least my batch, again, if there's a better Rep, if there's a better this, y'all let me know. This is just the one that I was able to obtain. The midsole stitching is cream. As you guys can see that, the midsole stitching matches the color of the midsole. And now on the retail pair, the midsole stitching is white. Big difference right there. Definitely a big difference. I don't even need to show you the comparison. You can literally see that. Midsole stitching's white, midsole stitching's cream. So I thought they were gonna do a better job. Maybe I just got a buns pair or something, you know. But that's a pretty notable one. But again, if you really want to fucking finesse somebody, or you can fucking turn this white, you can turn the stitching white. So they are very minor flaws, as I've I've been saying throughout all these videos, the flaws are there, but they're very minor. Again, with the rough cuts, right? You can see on the replica pair more of the yellow. You can see a lot more versus the retail. Let's get a little bit closer so you guys can see it. Look at that. Definitely more cuts. You can definitely see it's sort of like almost a thicker material. Even right here, you can see that in comparison to this. The yellow seems maybe a tad darker. Nothing too crazy, but definitely a little bit darker. The Jordan logo, at least on my pair, it gets cut off right here. Y'all let me know if you guys have a retail pair, if that's the same for you guys. But as you can see, the Air Jordan is right here in line with the stitching, whereas on the replica pair, it's not touching the stitching. You guys can see that. It's like they wanted to make sure you can see the crisp Air Jordan logo. Over here, they just kind of sort of slapped it on there. You can see the stitching. Maybe a slight difference in colors. I'm not too sure. Maybe this one has a little bit more of a blue hue to it compared to this one. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm seeing with my eyes. Padding is a bit more on the reps. Padding goes a bit deeper. Let's see if the insoles have any difference. They look practically identical. This is the replica. Okay, you're gonna zoom in. This is the replica. This is the retail. They're pretty much identical in that aspect. I don't really see anything too much. If I will say one thing, maybe the replica looks like it was kind of written with a Sharpie. I know that's sort of the point, but it looks a little bit more like it was written with a Sharpie compared to the retail, which is just a little bit more crisp. But aside from that, man, yeah, at this point, like I said, we're just fucking nitpicking. We are just nitpicking because it is very, very, very close. If you lace swap, if you buy these with no box, you might, you know, get finessed. So I'll always be cautious of that. You know, make sure you're getting your stuff from the right sources. Make sure you know how to do your diligence, because personally, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I'm not fucking relying on anybody because this shit is too complicated. I'm not relying on nobody for this because it gets too complicated. As you guys can see, I don't know if the holes are bigger on the retail pair. This is the retail, this is the rep. Y'all let me know. They might be a little bit bigger, like literally a little bit. This is the replica, this is the retail. Also a bit more sloppy on the hole punching on the retail. This is the replica. As you can see, it's very crisp. The retail, a little bit sloppier, especially on this one. But yeah, overall, this is definitely a tough one. Y'all let me know what you guys think, if you guys spotted any differences that I didn't see. I feel like I kind of covered most of them. I'm not really going to get too much into shape and all this stuff because, like I said, retail shape and all that stuff definitely varies as well. And I feel like that might not be the best indicator. I've also kind of noticing that the tumbledness is a bit more on the retail pair compared to the replica. You can kind of see already from over here, this angle, a lot more tumbled on this side panel versus the replica, which does not have that much tumbled. But other than that, I think that's pretty much it. I can't really, obviously I'm not going to do the outsoles because they're probably using the exact same one. I mean, but overall, I think they did a pretty good job. You know, definitely a good comparison. You guys let me know if you guys see anything. Also, this has a little bit of, it's a bit more fuzzy on the retail pair. I'll try to zoom in real quick. As you guys can see, it's a bit more fuzzy, a bit more hairy, if you will, where on the replica pair, it's not that much. So it almost looks a little smooth. Look at that. Again, we're nitpicking at this point, but overall, oh, and this panel is definitely a lot smaller on the rep. Look at how much smaller this is on the rep versus the retail pair. This panel is almost double that size. And there's even a little bit of extra purple or blue stitching. You don't have any of that on the replica. This is the retail pair with some sort of purple stitching. Replica pair, no purple stitching. And just, yeah, like I noticed throughout the whole shoot, all these dots within the stitching, you can see that. Again, this is the replica, this is the retail. You can see the holes already from over here. So that's just what I noticed with my pair. You guys let me know what you guys think. Was this a close one for you guys? Were you guys able to hit? Also, look at the black stitching coming out of the retail pair. Classic Nike, that's how you know they're legit. So y'all let me know what you guys think, if there's better pairs out there. Actually, hold on, let me fucking stop being lazy. There's actually a Hangtag, so let's switch shoes really quickly and let's get into the one with the Hangtag. I'm curious as to what the difference between the Hangtag is, if any. This is the Replica Hangtag, this is the retail Hangtag. Shit, man, to be honest, maybe the retail pair is a bit more foggy and the replica pair is a bit more clear. You guys can kind of see that. Yeah, definitely the one on the left, it also has a little blue hue to it. So not only is it a little bit foggy, but it's got a little blue hue to it, whereas the replica Hangtag is very clear. But again, like I said, I can just throw this away and now what? But yeah, overall I think this is a very close one. You can see how small the Union LA is compared to the retail. Oh my god, I'm butchering my words, I'm mixing it up. But overall, y'all let me know what you guys think. I tried to do a decent in-depth one when it comes to shoes like this, as they're very hard to hit on a retail pair, so I try my best to do a concise comparison. Again, you guys let me know if you guys found any differences, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.